Let me get over into the system here. Okay, so folks is into what I'm about. There we go. I see some people on this bitch. All right, see, I'm having to flip these screens, man. Having to flip these screens. Let me do my intro again, because fuck it, I ain't had a screen pulled over, man. See what I'm saying? I'm learning this shit, man. I'm learning it. I said thank y'all for tuning in to No Flag Radio. I'm your host, P. Doing it to it in this bitch. Good to see y'all tuning in. And today we talking about why the Asians owe on this here bag. You understand shit? Because I told y'all I wanted to do this a couple weeks ago, but we had them real bad storms out here and the weather was fucking up. Like, I didn't want to do it and risk getting blew around like Dorothy and shit. All the sirens and shit going off, the motherfucking warning, tornado warning sirens and shit going off and shit. I ain't want to have to endure all of that and be faced with that while I'm trying to deliver. You know what I mean? But good to see. I see some people in the chat. I can't see who's here, but it say some people in the chat. So what's up with y'all? So this is what we getting on today, because I don't want no other group anywhere to think that they don't owe on this bag while they sitting in America. All right? Reparations is a bag that's owed by anybody who's sitting here on this soil, period. And I didn't hear enough in black media talking about it, so I'm going to talk about it. So, Asians, we have to put the stamp on their back and put the brand on their back and heat it up real hot and stick it to their back and let them know that they participate in black lockout when offered systematic bribes. And that's going to be the premise of this video. And they're quiet when they get the preferential treatment, plural treatments, for ignoring our foundational work that allowed them to kick back here. So they owe on reparations, just like white immigrants, just like all these other groups, anybody. They need to be taking out their income, need to be taking out their work, need to be taking out their check, whatever. Okay? And why is pretty simple. Any group who knows white society has a racist grudge against black people for their genetic jealousy of us, or knows that we want to have our ancestral exploitation avenged monetarily, yet participates in or participated in any form of bribery from white society that edged out black society from developing our own empowerment and our own culture of empowerment in any way, they need to have that held against them. I'll repeat it because it's just that critical. Any group who knows white society has a racist grudge against black people for their genetic jealousy of us, or knows that we want to have our ancestral exploitation avenged monetarily, yet participates in or participated in any form of bribery from white society that edged out black society from developing our own culture of empowerment in any way, they need to have that held against them. Okay, so we know that white supremacist society has been courting the Asians to be a model minority. We talked about that. It's about the 1940s. So numbers wise, just to kick these numbers again, we know the Asians are 5.6% of the population. 66% of the Asians are foreign-born immigrants. And we're going to talk about the evolution of the naturalization of Asians once they get over here. We'll talk about that. Wealth-wise, they have higher incomes per household because there's usually more than one earner in the household. Median income for Asians is about $75,000 to $120,000. And that's what they pass down. Keyword pass down Like, they don't get sabotaged like black people do transgenerationally, with the main earners in our home, I mean, getting subject to prison pipelining, slavery through imprisonment, you know what I mean? Racist violence, racist hiring, racist bank lending, all this shit, right? They instead get to pass down what I call briberies in the form of money, in the form of policies and opportunities for their group over and in front of foundational black people, so they can keep a certain relationship cemented with white supremacist society here. And I'll get into that. They're trying to become as westernized as possible over here, and westernization is anti-black, it's pro-black oppression. If you really want to get down to it, let me throw up my little chart there so y'all can look at those figures of, you know, what these different Asian groups be making, what they holding in their pockets. All right, they want to be as westernized as possible with wealthy whites above them. They want to be subordinate to wealthy whites, but have whites as the administrators of their opportunities and wealth in a lot of ways, and their well-being in a lot of ways. So we're going to look at that dynamic and that kind of game they playing over here. That's the legacy they want to keep in place as a group, and that definitely means they're not friends of black people. So they need to be cutting some paper off of their earnings and they intake. So we're gonna get into it. So Asians started coming into America in approximately the 1830s. Let's flip that over there. Particularly into like Hawaii, in that area. All right. About the same year as white immigrants started making it into mainland United States. Then by the gold rush era, like California gold rush, 1850s and shit, they started making mainland America. Now, first I want to talk about the Asian struggle, quote unquote struggle, right? Because the other groups try to act like and fake like they are overcomers over here. I mean, like they've somehow triumphed so dag blanket hard over here. But I'm like, y'all motherfuckers can't even attempt to fold our experience on top of y'all's and get some sort of congruency to what we dealing with and what we've dealt with none of our experience. Can y'all do that? All right. So anytime you around somebody Asian and the topic of excuse me, the topic of what struggle was placed before them comes up, when they get to fronting, let them know as a group, know that Asians met pitifully minor pushback at the hands of whiteness here. Sort of like the white immigrants and all these other groups, right? They had minor lynchings, minor killings, minor exclusionary policies and organizations that were popping up because of their presence here, right? And it happened during a short time period, really. But our people, of course, us, we were already the struggle bearers of the time period when these Asians showed up. We had already, you know what I mean, when they first started coming here, and all the time periods in America, period. And Asians went through zero compared to us. We've been systematically targeted for struggle more than any group on the face of this continent. Asians had no systematically imposed trauma. That's my point. No breaking up of their families, no breaking up their wealth, none of that shit. All right? They had a soft entry into this society. Okay? Let me go to my Chizat. And after the railroad work, is that right? The railroad work, I can't even say it right. After that shit dried up, all the exclusionary practices and all that shit that was in play for them, that shit started phasing out for Asians. They got into a period of really chilling, right? They made through their little exclusionary era with things like the Geary Act of 1892, where like Chinese in particular had to register for proof to be in America type shit. But after that shit, they was chilling. We got into a period from about 1943 to 1965, where white supremacist society started phasing out all that exclusionary stuff for the Asians. Let me go to my main YouTube screen. Okay. Just checking a few screens here, y'all. Got some people in the Chizette. Just checking a few things. Making sure my key and stuff is in with the YouTube side of the world. You got to keep the key in. Got to put the key in so bread we be seeing it'll reach the fucking ceiling. Check it. McCalico, being cock. Okay. Had a little Biggie flashback on y'all. But okay. Back to my scrizzings. So, you know, like I said, man, after they made it through their little exclusionary period, them motherfuckers was chilling. And white supremacist society, in that range from about 1943 to 1965, white supremacist society started phasing out all of those headaches on the Asians and started opening them up to different naturalization routes to citizenship. Okay, let me flip a picture. The pictures I want to flip in this, I guess it's cool. I'll keep it in the chat. It don't matter. Don't matter. So, you know, me as a black man, you know, when I hear that date range, 1943 to 1965, I'm like, yo, what up, lovely darkness? See you over there, Miss Lady. See, I'm looking this way, but I know you over there. You know what I'm saying? The screens is backwards over here, but okay. But me being a black man, like I said, I look at that date range from about 1943 to 1965. I look at that, and so many light bulbs go off as far as black people and what we were dealing with that Asians flat out were not dealing with. Okay? Keep in mind, black people, we were still being trafficked as slaves in America. Let me get up to this screen. We were still being trafficked as slaves in America, even up until 1942. All right, we talked a little bit about convict leasing and all of that. That was in play, but we talking about the international importation of black slaves. All right, that was officially abolished in the U.S. in 1941 on paper, 1942 and as far as when it came into effect. Yo, what up, Paraphernalia Palace? What up, Haru Ali? What up with y'all? All right, just want to put that up there for those that, you know, really want to get down to it. You know, we were still under that bondage. 13th Amendment be damned. All right, I'll say that again. 13th Amendment be damned. You know, 13th Amendment, that only applied to states that actually seceded from the Union, right? The border states like Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri. Those kind of places weren't affected. And parts of the Confederacy where the North actually seized and all of that shit, they weren't affected. If the northern state seized control of a state, it wasn't affected, right? But officially, it was put on the books by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. Let me pull this up here. Let's circle the 3591. If y'all are familiar with this, y'all may have heard people talk about this. But y'all see that date, December 12th, 1941. Office of the Attorney General regarding involuntary servitude, slavery, and peonage. What I'm talking about, right? That's what officially got our situation better or whatever in terms of peonage. But of course, convict leasing and slavery through imprisonment, of course, that still was happening. That still carries on today, okay? But this was our situation still in the 1940s. Asians ain't have to worry about that, is my point. They ain't have to worry about that shit in the 1940s, in the 1930s, 1920s, 1910s, the 1890s, 1880s, going all the way back to the beginning of this country. They ain't had to deal with that and having the equity of their labor ripped off systematically. Okay? So, due to the generations of soft treatment that they got right in front of our faces, they were easily manipulated into a class of people that became loyal to the resources and the economic pull, to put it in a term, the economic pull of white society and the economic pull that white society stole from us to empower themselves with, right? And they were made into what I call on my channel a lapdog class. Okay, this is the process they use on all these non-ADOS groups, all of them. And if you're loyal to white stolen power, you anti-black. And I want us to get that. So let's look at 1965 as I think about this date range, right? From about 1943 to that 1965 date range, that marked the ending of some of the worst things that Asians ever experienced under racism and white supremacy. They got included in affirmative action, which popped off in the 60s, right? They got them in all these schools on the West Coast, so forth and so on. And join that with what was happening with those exclusionary policies like the Geary Act and all of that. Asians were getting overly gift bagged and overly allotted things in society. I think of the Magnuson Act that jumped off in 1943, which ended the exclusionary acts like the Geary Act. Started up the first immigrant lottery for the Asians, the first naturalization lottery for these different Asian groups and so forth and so on. This is policy being put on the books constantly, basically, to humanize and legitimize the Asian. Started with the Chinese, where they, allowed a certain number of them to come in. They brought in another policy for the Filipinos. And then we had the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You understand? They getting all these great treatments. That was some shit that we fought for, right? We fought for that. But again, Asians got swallowed up in that shit too. Understand? They got swallowed up in that shit. They got swallowed up in the 14th Amendment. Our struggle laid the basis for the 14th Amendment, which was born citizenship for all these immigrant groups to start anchor babying it up and all that shit. All right? And clouding up off of that, right? All of that shit came into play. And understand that we fought for all of that shit. It's our struggle that made the culture basically for all these different laws to start flipping in the favor of all these different groups. You understand? The 14th Amendment, that wasn't just something that extended citizenship to us as a group. You understand? That was for everybody, anybody that was born here. So everybody started clouding up. Civil Rights Act, all that shit. We fought for that. We spilled blood in Selma for that shit, goddammit. We spilled blood in Selma for that shit, right? Which ended segregation in public places and discrimination in hiring and shit like that based on nation of origin and sex and race and all that shit, right? That helped Asians. That came out of our civil rights efforts. Don't ever let an Asian forget that, is my point. We talking about Asians, but it goes for every non-black group in the U.S., period. So what we begin to ultimately see with all these giftings and all these grab bags and all this grab baggery going on is that all those laws that lifted naturalization restrictions on the Asians, set up the lottery system, allowed for these non-discriminatory employment, the land ownership. They had the Alien Land Act out in California that allowed them to, that stopped them from owning land. The 14th Amendment, sweep that out the way so then they could be citizens and, right, that type of shit. California, they didn't, California is a place that, I'm using them as an example, but they were a high Asian population, been a high Asian population. And with that comes, white supremacists, dislike and hatred. California didn't even ratify the 14th Amendment until like 1959, way late in the game. But they had these alien land acts that Asian immigrants, couldn't own land. But they had a Supreme Court case that referenced the 14th Amendment that said, okay, fuck it, now y'all can own land. So, right? So I'm just trying to frame y'all start around what our black struggle looked like next to what they were going through and how we helped them. All these things that ultimately made Asians into normal citizens and all this type of shit, as they want to categorize themselves as. We put that in place. But I'm going to say this. Ultimately, all these things that were used to help them were a part of a gift package to make them allies who would subvert black struggle. Okay? That's my point. I want y'all to see that these other groups are easily bribed. Okay? And they will be loyal to who gives them shit. With all this shit that we talking about, with laws and regulations and all of that shit. So as we look back on it, I just want us to understand that this is chess, not checkers, with white supremacy. And white supremacy says, oh, we can use immigrants to hide behind and use them as allies if we stop trying to play them to the left all the motherfucking time, here and there, or whatever. We can just focus all our energy on keeping black people down. It's less energy expended that way when you just focus your energy on one group, right? And just use Asians and these other groups as kind of like these Trojan horse allies to black people. Where black folks, we think they cool. We think all these other groups cool because white mommy and daddy stick a minority label on them. Oh, they minorities, so all right. While white supremacist society is like, we can just drag black folks through the mud all day while they think the motherfuckers is cool, right? I'm going to get into that a little more, but immigration has been weaponized against foundational black society in that way. Is my point. White supremacist society know the more group of people you can get to pile up and kind of run gang, the more people you can appease and bribe. Just the sheer volume of groups you can get together, kind of double team, triple team, quadruple team blackness that are willing to join in and kind of play team white supremacy, parrot all their narratives, come with all of their excuses as to why they need to leave us untended to type shit. That keeps white supremacy in place, right? And immigrants are tools in this society. Even though they act like they so proud of their immigrant heritage, they come over here willing tools to execute white supremacist code. They be fake proud and shit over here, is my point. So the mentality of white supremacist society then and now was, everything that they could give, all the justice and protections, all the double protection, all the double protection, right? All the double looking out that we could be doing for black people. Let's give it to other groups like the Asians and other immigrants, white immigrants, everybody, right? So they can be set up as a weapon against blackness too. And Asians, they're a group that sat back and watched this shit and bask in this shit, which is why they must be held accountable. On to the 60s and 70s. That was another period rife with America still further humanizing the Asian, allowing Asians to assimilate and participate in more naturalization lotteries. They broke down the lottery even further, where they got the Chinese mainland, the Hong Kong lottery, the Taiwan lottery, all this shit. Started dicing up cities and provinces, and again giving them set-asides, right? All this is to show, white supremacist society willingly will dice up a group of people. They'll pick a group of people and just dice the motherfuckers up, specifically to give them allowances based on their exact location on the motherfucking map, right? So seeing that means something can be done about our set-asides. Something can be done in the way of our set-asides through legislation and executive acts for ADOS with our command of, what we saying. We saying, look at our particular bloodline on a map where we done lived for 3, 4, 5 generations or more, and cut up a pie up out of that bitch, run that bag, right? It's not a hard thing to administer, is my point. It's been done with other groups. Asians are a good example. And I want to pull this up. We can't forget this. And y'all know by 1988, since we're talking about all the good things the Asians be getting, by 1988, there you go. There it is. Asians had reparations checks, god damn it. Civil Liberties Act, 1988. Y'all see how white supremacist society played that shit out, right? They hazed them when they first came over here with a little lightweight hatred, like they did the white immigrants and the Catholics and all that shit for about a good 170 years. Not even really a full 170 years, probably less than that. They got hazed, not tortured. They got hazed, not tortured, like our ancestors, right? They ain't put in on no real ass bag. They ain't put in on no infrastructure. They ain't put in on no Wall Street building. They ain't put in on no White House building. They ain't put in on no Revolutionary War. Ain't spill no blood in Selma, nigga. You know what I mean? Yet, 1988, they collected. Understand? So not only are they humanized and legitimized at this point through policy, those policies that I mentioned, they're being looked at as check-worthy to the system after being humanized and legitimized through this humanizing and legitimization process, right? But I told y'all why this society does that. They want to make Asians into allies who would subvert black struggle and be loyal to who gifted them. Okay? And since we're talking chicks, I mean, I want to look at how the Asians got that median family income of 80 G's that I was talking about. 75 G, I'm calling it 80 G's. That's basically 80 G's. Because this phenomenon, you know, that you kind of see in the stereotypical display of what they will want people to kind of attribute to Asianhood is that, oh, these are people who go to school and make high grades and set the curve and all these classes type shit going on. Like, I mean, and they get jobs in science and math type shit, and they in the STEM field getting all this money through the STEM. Like, that's some old brand new shit for their ass. That's very new in America. I wanna say there was this Asian chick a couple days ago. Y'all heard about this billionaire rich ass Asian chick on some Lori Loughlin tip? On the Lori Loughlin tip, out there paying to get into school. Like, them motherfuckers ain't all like that. Ain't, you know what I mean? Just saying. If any of y'all remember that story, I'm trying to think about where this was, but chick family rich as hell and shit. This motherfucker on some Lori Loughlin shit, finna go to the bin with this white bitch Lori Loughlin, who not finna go to the bin, finna go to the bin type shit, like the bitch Felicity Huffman. I mean, following behind they shit, right? But like I said, all that getting good grades and shit, that's really new to their ass. I want to look at how Asians run business, particularly how they run businesses around us, and how they run business around themselves, and how they run businesses around other groups, real quickly. You know that Asians were given free reign to do business in their own neighborhoods for a long ass time, without the kind of sabotage that we had to deal with in America, right? That's important to note, and we never had that shit en masse. That's an important thing. These Asians were allowed to run businesses in the late 1800s as they were being excluded from society in a lot of ways. You understand? They were excluded from all kind of this and that. But that's why they started what? Chinatowns and Taiwan towns, all of this shit, right? In that era. That allowed them to consolidate themselves as a group and consolidate their equity. You understand? And they ain't have to turn around every 2 seconds and look for the KKK because their neighborhoods getting burnt down and all this type of shit at the rate that we was going through that shit. The KKK came through, visited they shit too, but they, man, I went on motherfucking the internet just to count up the number of white supremacist riots with and destruction of Chinatowns, Chinese, this and that, Asian towns, shit about 10. And their whole history of talking about the 19th century, which is when they were first coming up here, first popping up. 10 in the 19th century, the whole damn 19th century, basically from the 1830s on up. Like what? That is pitiful. I'm not saying there's like no competition, like there's no, you know what I'm saying, badge of honor or some shit. But I'm like, what? Who you talking to when you talking about your people don't struggle? I don't want to hear that shit. In my mind is what I be thinking, right? They largely got left alone. You understand? In they Chinatowns and all that shit. But the biggest part of them being able to really get their business foothold, not even just that, it was them being shown a systematic courtesy and a favoritism being shown to their group by the terrorist white supremacist regime that we face. Just follow me on that. So all of that is a hindrance. White supremacist violence, that was and has been our hindrance to us being as favorable a community, so to speak, business-wise, right? That's sabotage when it comes to your people being considered a group to do business with, and your community a place to do business in type shit, right? And for lenders to lend you to do this, that, and the third, right? And the thing is, all non-blacks know this shit, like the Asians, yet they stay silent about it because they want to show that they own code with white supremacy. White supremacy says, look, even if white supremacist society is sabotaging and hobbling black society for all these motherfucking years, you non-blacks, you better get your ass on code and pretend as if it's something that black folk doing. Y'all better fake it up and pretend like it's something black folk doing as to why their communities are suffering generationally, economically, socially, whatever, right? Pretend like it's black people's fault for their conditions that we've systematically imposed upon them. And parrot and publicize the narrative that we do about their situation. You understand? And we're gonna give you some Asian biscuits, goddammit. What they have with the buffet, them little Asian biscuits and little cinnamon powder biscuits. We're gonna give you some cinnamon powder biscuits, some little sweet biscuits and shit. If you do good, right? And Asians, by and large, have fallen into that trap in terms of their psychology as a group. Quietly, they've fallen into that trap. So, you know, they heard that white supremacist dog whistle, like all other groups, they playing ball with this shit. And that's the damn deal. And here's another thing I want to point out. When we're talking about business. Now, one thing that was a phenomenon in my childhood, like late 80s, early 90s, going through the 90s, these Asians, they used all kind of ways to get their money up in terms of having these businesses or whatnot. And they kind of have an expectation to come out here to be able to get loans, you know what I mean, from all kind of loans from banks, all kind of immigrant-based loan center programs type of shit, right? And to start businesses in black communities. Or they just dig into their family money, right? I mean, they got transgenerational wealth they be holding on to and stuffing and stashing in different places, right? This is kind of what we seeing out of them, right? They've been able to kind of amass money in certain cases and do that type of shit, right? So I want to point out, with all of that backing and shit, why are they allowed to survive in our communities? Or how do they survive in our communities with their loans and their family money and all this other shit? They pass down monies and all this shit. Well, a couple of Asian researchers, let me get their names up here, Ching Lucy and Yin Espiritu, hope I said that right, Yin Espiritu, I'm trying to say it like a Asian motherfucker. You know, they delve into this particular topic and confirm that, yo, the Asians, they survive by undercutting black businesses, like the black businesses that could be in the place of an Asian owned business, right? They undercut them on prices, right? Then for all the shit that's inside of the place, whatever they charge you for, they overcharge you for the shit, right? This comes from an Asian. Let me pull up this motherfucker's little article. Just put up a little snippet of it. Need to make that bigger. Okay, well, you see the name of it. It's called, the name of the study was called Korean Black and Korean Mexican Relations in Los Angeles County, right? And this is a study that he did in I guess like mid 80s is when it covered this little range or whatever. He's like, yo, this Ching Lucy and Yen Espiritu, they like, yo, in 1985, a third of Korean businesses were black and Latino sitting where black and Latino would be at, right? So, you know, we in 2019 with gentrification, who knows how that shit look now? But further in the study, he's like, yo, 70% of the gas stations in South Central LA, he did a little swath of LA. It was like, yo, 70% of the gas stations in LA is owned by Koreans. That shouldn't be happening where we live at. Understand? It should be the exact damn opposite. We need to be the fixtures in our community, not the Asians. And a side note of the story, because they did go on the Latinos, a little side note, the fool also broke down how the Asians having to find a cool ass vibe with the Latinos. Like, it was never no hostility like what they get with us when we're around and in their business areas, right? None of the hostility, right? Yo, I find that's beyond me, you know what I'm saying? In my Ha Davis voice, that's just beyond me. You know? So there's a cool vibe between the Latino and the Asian when they in the Asian neighborhoods. So that's racialized. You understand? It shows that the Asians know how to motherfucking act when they around other groups except us. Y'all get me? Because they've been fed black demonization over here, and they want to be in line with that. You get it? Latinos, they get hired to work with these motherfuckers. The guy was breaking down, like, these motherfuckers get to be in the stores, working with these motherfuckers. You know, there's a different kind of relationship. They don't be hiring black people to work in these Asian stores when they pop up in black neighborhoods. How many black workers you ever seen in an Asian this and that kind of store in the hood where somebody black walking around that bitch? You know what I'm saying? Where have you seen that? We don't see that shit. We take another look. Shit, now in 2019, another factoid. Koreans own 70% of the 10,000 beauty supply shops walking around this motherfucker. Alright, peep that game though. They own 70% of the 10,000 beauty shops in America. Peep that. That's now, 2019. Nationwide. That's a lot of spending done from the black community. And that's a big ass bleeding of our money, right? A little history for y'all as far as the Koreans. They give them credit for really blowing up the Asian in terms of what they getting out of the beauty supply market and shit, and the wig making market. They say that maybe some of my wig niestas, anybody that make wigs and do weaves and shit like that, maybe y'all could check into this fact for me. But I'll give me some info in the chat if any of my weave nieces in the chat. But they said, like, before the 1960s, you know, wigs and weaves and shit like that. I guess they wasn't wigs, it was just wigs. Wigs were sold to black women on some door-to-door salesman shit, right? It wasn't no storefront like we used to seeing now, right? And the Koreans in particular are supposed to be the group that blew that shit up to where it was actually a storefront now, where you saw like the mannequin or you saw like the little half head with the wig on it, right? That's the fact that I got, that they the ones that blew that shit up. I'm saying it might be some black that blew it up, I don't know, but that's what they taking credit for. I can see how some shit like that, after that type of shit would blow up, right? I can see how they started racking up after that. They say that, you know, after that became a fixture in the wig selling game, the Koreans just blew up and they started making all this money, started clouding up, and then started showing other Koreans how to do the same shit, right? Okay, so if that makes any sense, right? So we see where that shit is at now. Add that shit up. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? We talked about, you know, Asians and their seed money that comes from having multiple earners of income. There you go. You know what I mean? Even to this day, Asians got that multiple earner phenomenon going on. Seed money that comes from being able to sustain a Chinatown, an Asian town for years and don't get racially targeted, and able to pull up these shops, set these motherfuckers up and don't get targeted, right? They've bloomed this shit into some real economy. So in my eyes, this is calculated. You know what I mean? It's a calculated non-black takeover of our communities in a lot of ways. Part of me says, I'm sure some people out there that's gonna say, you know, man, that shit with the weaves and shit, that's like a motherfucker setting up shop, serving the fiends type shit. You know what I'm saying? Part of me hear that, right? Then another part of me say the shit is done with malice, right? It's done with malice and intent on locking black people out of the wig business. You know what I mean? And just locking us out of our own options at wealth, because we know the cycle of white supremacist infrastructure. They've been allowing these agents to bleed our communities, right? With these kind of businesses. I'm just gonna talk on Asians right now. We know it's Indians and Latinos, all these other groups, they get a crack at our dollars, right? They run a train on our dollars, right? But I'm looking at it like, you know, the infrastructure has been contoured to allow Asians and all these other groups to take from our community, bleed our community with these types of businesses, when somebody black could walk in with the same startup capital, same loan requests in a black neighborhood and not be commissioned to do so, not be allowed to do so. You hear what I'm saying? So what? I mean, I look at that like that, right? And they have these Asian groups, these immigrant groups specifically. They come in with these different groups. They got these lending programs that they have for all these other immigrant groups, these groups that ain't us, foundational black, right? All these banks. That shit sound like a setup. It sounds like an anti-black setup to me. And you know, the cost of starting up a business in black neighborhoods is 2 times cheaper than anywhere else. And that's a lick that the Asians have found as far as coming to our neighborhoods is concerned. Take notes on that shit, black people. The cost is 2 times lower than starting a business anywhere else. So these different groups, especially these Asians, they come over here looking at our community like a motherfucking starter kit to building wealth in a country. You know what I mean? If they can't get some fancy real estate somewhere else that ain't in a black area or whatever, they using us as the motherfucking starter pack, starter sack. You know what I mean? We the motherfucking quarter key until they can come up on the bird or whatever. They using us as the starter. You know what I mean? And black folk, we gotta intercept that shit. We gotta put our money together and, you know, stop them from making them type of plays in the long haul of things, right? That's how I'm thinking. You know, I've told y'all I built a business in my city before, you know what I mean? And that was just me getting up my money type shit, and getting with some other motherfuckers that was getting up their money type shit, and making that shit happen. You know what I mean? But like I said, black businesses and black potential business owners, we get denied loans and shit in our own communities where the startup is cheaper. You know what I'm saying? And this is strictly due to the racist lending practices that are cemented in these banks. These same banks that practice redlining, same banks that used to use our ancestors' bodies as collateral on loans and shit. The same banks that, you know, denying us loans in our communities where the startup is cheaper, right? And they are overly Asian friendly, overly Indian friendly, right? I'm just saying, just put all that shit together. So I'm gonna say that Asians come in, got it on their mind to play accessory to black lockout that I talk about on this channel, right? Whenever white supremacist society get in their ear and start courting them with shit, start trying to pepper their mind with different things about different little this and that they can grab at and get at. And they've been willing to take these step ups over us in our own neighborhoods from 30, 40, 50, 60 years back, right? That's why I'm saying it's like, it can't just be no shit like these motherfuckers is just, you know, posting up serving the fiends type shit. It's gotta be more than that shit. You understand? In my eyes. It looks like a group is exasperating our wealth lockout. And any group that's exasperating our wealth lockout, they gotta be called to the floor. Alright? I'm gonna put that in the face of the Asians, because banks know they playing favoritism and lending to Asians who set up shop in black neighborhoods, and Asians know it when they look around. Asian business owners, they looking around, they see all their neighboring businesses are Asians in these buildings right beside them in a black neighborhood. They looking at all their neighbors in a little business district where they at. They looking around, they see nothing but Asians, and they know they in a black neighborhood. Right? All the neighboring businesses are Asian owned, so they know they participating in a favoritism sort of thing in terms of Asians getting the real estate to set up shop in black neighborhoods. And I grew up seeing this shit, you know, in different parts of the city. I mean, and wondering like, damn, how the hell did they get? How did they end up there? Now I know it's because it's a system in place that allows for Asians to step up over black people due to white racism. White racism is using the Asian as an expression of their racism, as the face of their racism. This shit is clear as day in the world of business loaning and business setting up. And the Asians aren't calling this shit out or stopping this shit. You see what I'm saying? And they didn't call it out or stop it during the 80s or the 90s. All right? They played ball with white supremacy. And they played ball with white supremacist interests because they already gave into their role as being a potential loyal lapdog class, like I'll be talking about. Just like the white immigrants, just like all these motherfuckers. The Asians were trained by a system of black negating, set aside type shit. Trained by bribery. Okay? That's who they come from back then and into the day. So let's look at all the dirt that Asians repaid all this courtesy with, all this goody shit that they was able to get a hold of once they got up here. Let's look at how they repaid all of this shit once they got in America by way of our heavy lifting after the 40s onward or whatever. So we can look at, you know, kind of this cognitive dissonance that white supremacist society probably got now for the fuck of fucking with them. All right? Just the beginning of this time last year, and I guess at the beginning of this year, beginning of this past month, this dude, Jerry, what's his name? Jerry Lee. I'm calling him Chi. Jerry Lee. See if I got a picture of this Jerry Lee cat. See if I can pull it up. Jerry Lee, this dude, is a spy for China, basically. Well, he's a ex-CIA agent, but he was doing like espionage work, I guess. And he gave China like highly classified information about the CIA's operations in China, right? This was last year that he did this. Around this time last year, maybe like so beginning of April last year, right? They called him up on this shit, right? And he just finished his little court shit up a couple weeks ago. But he got several US spies executed out there in China. He got 20 US informants, people that was over there trying to, collect information for the US. He got their asses killed because he's CIA, but he was like, yo, look, this motherfucker is a spy for America. Kill him. This motherfucker here, a spy for America. Kill him. This motherfucker here, a spy for America. Kill his ass too. That motherfucker there, he a spy for America. Kill him. It was that type of shit, right? To the tune of 20 motherfuckers, right? Killing these motherfuckers because, outing them to all these Chinese officials. It was his game. Sending information back to China. He was sending this information, all kind of information back to Russia. Sensitive information, so-called, whatever. So bad that the U.S. had to shut down their China spy program altogether because of this shit, right? This is how the Asian world is paying back all the grab bags white society done seen fit to give them in order to spite us, okay? These are the same motherfucking Asians. Couldn't find a dude picture. Here go another picture. I want y'all to see this. Same motherfucking Asians running that fentanyl dick up America ass. You understand? White people can't stay off that fentanyl. China's fentanyl market is fueling the U.S. opioid crisis. So y'all see the pipeline, if y'all can see it. I hope I made it to the side if y'all can see it. China to Mexico. China to Mexico. They going back and forth on that shit. China to U.S. Americans buy pure fentanyl or precursor chemicals over the dark web. China to Canada to U.S. They not playing. You understand? And shout out to Lisa Cabrera. She goes in on the whole fentanyl crisis and shit. We all know they bombed the U.S. at Pearl Harbor, all of this shit. The Asian community has unleashed a legitimate motherfucking threat on America. In a lot of ways, you know what I mean? Real legitimate threat. Unprovoked. They've done this. Largely unprovoked. So, what's with the soft handling of the Asians? I'll tell y'all why in these terms. Like I said, these Asians, they deal in dirt. And they get soft handled because white supremacist society is willing to gamble that, hey, this is just another group of immigrants. They're willing to compete with other immigrant groups to try to reach that top loyal lapdog spot. White supremacist society is willing to gamble that they're going to be in to compete with other non-black groups to be the most loyal lapdog class around this bitch. That's what this whole model minority thing is about. Y'all, I don't want y'all to ever miss that. That's what the model minority thing is about, is who going to help disenfranchise black people and compete with all other immigrant groups, because they got a whole different cause as to why they even here. Who going to ladder step over all the other immigrants? Who going to do the most for white daddy in the face of those blacks and keep those? Who's going to be the number one attack dog out of that on the blacks out of that, right? And that's what it is. White society just don't care what they risk in order to have that type of immigrant in place. They don't care what they got to risk in order to keep that in place. Anything to cover the fact that they owe us a debt. Anything, you know what I mean? All that type of shit. Anything to cover that they need to be coming up off that bag and stop fucking around with all these other groups and go ahead and bow down to what's real, quit playing games and all of this type of shit, right? Anything to put out any face or any narrative, publicize anything necessary try to wash the public space with all their little punk ass narratives, all their little punk ass non sequiturs, right? About what they think need to be going on around this bitch in terms of the black experience. They're willing to risk it all on these immigrant groups and have them be the toy soldiers behind the shit. They're willing to try it, right? And it's a gamble that Asians, Indians, Latinos, they are willing to vie to be the greatest minimizer of black society out of this shit. It gives white supremacists cover. It gives white supremacy cover. They're willing to vie to be the greatest minimizer of the grievances of ADOS, Foundational Black Americans. I mean, us personally, we done seen all the motherfucking ins and outs of being a subjugated class. So while we're here and we're tired of being white society subordinate, we want to do our own thing, play our own code, you understand? Execute our own way of doing things. They are willing to be white subordinates for a cost. You get it? For a cost, for a gift, for a grab bag, for whatever little set aside they can get, right? For a goodie bag. And that's some old low self-esteem shit as a group, right? They are willing to be in a subordinate position as long as it's not as bad as the position that we in. That's what it comes down to. And I brought that up before, right? As long as these groups don't get comparable fucked up treatment to black people, they flat out cool with white supremacy. As long as it don't reach as low as what black folk going through. Because that's the motherfucking alarm. I think I said this in my video about the vetted diaspora coons and all that shit. I'm gonna get in on our non-ADOS brothers and sisters on another post. I got something I want to touch on with them. Alright, but that's the motherfucking alarm for these other groups. And believe it, that they pass that shit down to their families. Like, you know, we got an Asian gravy train going on, we got an Indian gravy train going on, we got a Latino gravy train going on. Don't be pissing nobody off around this bitch. White mommy and daddy, they gonna come for us in a way that's equal to black people if we fuck up. Alright? They only supposed to be going in on these native blacks here. Don't fuck it up, alright? That's the alarm in all these groups. You know what I mean? That's like the tripwire for them to start hopping a motherfucking plane and leaving this bitch. Because, you know, like I said, they be holding that plane ticket out of this motherfucker. They got it in their back pocket all day and they waiting to use that bitch all day. That's what these immigrant groups be dealing with. Okay? And, you know, with these Asians, man, they trying to go back to Taiwan, trying to go back to Japan, you know what I'm saying? They trying to run, you know what I mean, and start cashing on their little plane ticket that they keep on deck. Whenever they start getting equal opportunity violence at the hands of white society, you know, that's the only thing that's going to flip these other groups, these Asians, Latinos, whoever, these other groups. That's the only thing that's going to flip these motherfuckers to being moral. You know what I mean? I'm giving y'all the code on this shit. So, you know, just understand, they don't like to talk about that shit. But these other groups, we seeing it for what it is. So, what's happening in the meantime is these Asians, Latinos, Indians, the better diaspora coons, all of them, they don't have no claim in creating the wealth of this country. So they want to kiss the ass of whatever group is most violently laying claim to the majority of wealth that was created or gets created here. I think I might have said this before, but peep that out. That's all this shit really is. And it's out of black people and white people as to who as they will kiss at any given point in time. So y'all don't forget that shit, right? This applies to all groups, all non-black and non-white groups. I mean, America is a ADOS versus white people thing around this bitch. All other groups don't matter. You understand? Because our ancestors and white people set against each other. That's what produced the wealth that everybody's scavenging from. You understand? All these other groups, they simply see themselves as an extension of that black versus white wealth war that undergirds this country. Right? But it's only to the extent that they get to scavenge off the native warring factions here. You get it? Because it ain't them. Right? They just on the side looking at primarily who's the most violent out of the two warring factions, black or white, who caused more bloodshed. That's what I'm going to respect more. Okay? And then now we're going to fall in line with who's the most, you know what I mean? Who's the most violent out of the two, just in general. And to a lesser degree, who gives them more this and that. Right? It's how they move around this bitch. It's how they make their moves. Who is giving them the most this and that for now? Oh, okay, it's white people. Okay, then we're going to be up under white people nuts. Right? That's what's happening. So, there's a continuum of bribery and Asian doggy treats that white society has earmarked and doles out to them routinely. And, white society just keeps checking up on different sectors like Asians. Yo, what y'all bank loans look like? Y'all need some loans? Y'all good? Y'all good? Okay. What y'all Asian scholarships look like? Oh, what's up? Y'all good? Y'all good? What y'all reparations look like? Y'all good, Asians? Y'all got any gripes? Y'all good? Right? They do that as a way of saying and kind of reaffirming to them, Asians, that, hey, whiteness has been more violent than black people. So out of that violence, whiteness gives to Asians more than the blacks. Be in line with white supremacy, right? That's the equation they putting together. That's why I say white society is dealing with a sort of cognitive dissonance with Asians in that way. The Asians is killing them white folk with the fentanyl and all that kind of other shit. But they got to try and prop up a white supremacist regime that targets only black. Okay? We are the only enemy of this society, if y'all didn't know. Which is why white supremacy organizes in this way and organizes other groups against us to pull the double teaming, the triple teaming, the quadruple teaming against us, right? I've talked about that before as well. And they depend on the Asian as pawns. They're like, they're trying to make themselves a model minority. That's why I started this series with the Asian, because they are the ones that's in line to be the model minority. So we got to look into what is the logic going behind them being at the front of that line. For what reason, right? And they depend on the Asians. Like I said, they want them to be the top, go along to get along as long as the getting is good kind of group, right? By giving them these set-asides and et-ceteras that we don't get. And of course there's flaws in that. Of course we know there's flaws in that. There's no true loyalty in that type of shit, right? If the goodies stop coming, it's a motherfucking problem. That's a real point, right? And we see with the Asians, damn, all it takes is for their home continent to come calling. All it takes is for their home continent to come calling and start deciding, hey, look, we got an agenda all of a sudden to want to be a world power, like China, for instance. I'm just using them as an example, but you understand? We got an agenda to be a world power right now. So the way to getting to that is we probably gonna have to go through whiteness and kill off white people with an opioid epidemic. They're not playing. They all on code. In the meantime, Asians, like I said, they're guilty of accepting set-asides. Out, man, shit crazy. I still like this, old school cutout. I fucks with it. That's why, it's a comfort level to this bitch. I love this motherfucker, man. I'm saying, I don't want to get a new one. I got new ones. I don't want to use it. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep this one on for the presentation. I'm going to make a t-shirt with this on it and everything, man. I like this one. I like the cutout. Understand? But they in play to get these ill-gotten gains. They guilty of accepting this type of shit from society, Asians, and we got to call them out for that. You know what I mean? We got to get them. You know what I'm saying? We got to get them, baby. Real life. They owe us reparations by virtue of our wealth transfer coming through white society, by virtue of white society being the mechanism by which they receive allotments out of our bag and throughout our communities type shit, right? They owe us by virtue of our well-being transfer coming through white society, as far as us being a negatively targeted group, and by virtue of white society being the mechanism by which favoritisms and soft-handling over us is in play, right? For white supremacist societies, jealous ass, genetic, jealous having ass reasons, right? Right? That's what's happening. Man, hold on, I've seen a bunch of comments blow up in this bitch, man. I didn't even look at the comments, man. Hold on, let me put this one picture up. Y'all found this picture, y'all. Y'all seen these shits before? Y'all seen them shits before? That's what the Asians going for, y'all. You know what I mean? That's what they want. They want them little cinnamon biscuits, yo. Little sugar biscuits, little sweet, whatever they call it. So I don't know if they put butter in them. I know they fry them motherfuckers, man. And their hands is sticky with them shits right now, son. That's what they on, man. That's what's on their plate. That's how they feeding right now, you understand? Oh, let me get to the chat. I'm gonna pull up a couple folks from the chat, man, because I just been on some go with it. I don't know how I can scroll. I can go to this screen and scroll up. Here we go. There we go. We see a few faces in this mug. Who in this mug that I want to holler at? Paraphernalia Palace 2 say at the top, yo, they are not to be trusted with a capital N-O-T. That's real shit. Niche LA say, America make sure they take care of their anti-black allies. Yeah, that's some real shit. Paraphernalia Palace say, Takeout City. What you talking about? You talking about how they be keeping businesses off in our city and our hood and doing shit that they should not be doing. They should not be having their businesses in our fucking communities, period, ever, never, should never be there. You know what I mean? Y'all, I told y'all, me, my hood, all I knew was black businesses. You know what I'm saying? All I knew was black businesses. I didn't know of no Asian business. I didn't start seeing no Asian-owned businesses until, shit, I guess like by my school and shit. Like, till I got like in the middle school age and shit. You know what I mean? But in my neighborhood, like, nah, man. Like, y'all seen like the marathon and shit, where the boy Nipsey, that property that he owns, RIP to our ancestor Nipsey, you know what I'm saying? We had shit like that. All black owned shit. Wasn't no Asian getting paid, no money to be around us, nothing. Nothing but us, right? So yeah, man, when you say Takeout City, I think of a few of the takeout spots that we had, like, further away from my hood. I'm saying, it's like, yeah, motherfucking cat serving motherfuckers. One of the places did get shut down for a cat violation. No bullshit. Understand? Real shit, you know what I mean? And we were all very upset but very angry at the same time that we had to eat there. Like, oh look, we ate here before. We mad that it's gone, but goddamn, we had to eat here before. We might have ate some motherfucking cat on a motherfucking lunch break at some point in time. Goddamn. What the fuck, though? No. That's... I'm glad they shut down. You dirty motherfucking cat skinning motherfuckers, you. So yeah, I know what you're getting at. My boy Paraphernalia Palace, I know what you're getting at, man. Ishmael Muhammad got a lot of shit off in the comments. The Latasha Harlan video, this is Ishmael Muhammad. The Latasha Harlan video was all over the TV in LA, and when it happened, and the corruption in the courts, the police department was front and center, and the brothers in the hood was hot as fish grease. Yeah, I can believe that. Hell yeah. Yeah, motherfucking Asians, you know what I mean? They violent towards black people. They don't got that same streak with nobody else, right? What the fuck? It's just payback. Oh, this is Ishmael Muhammad real quick. It's just payback for these crackers who did the same thing in China with drugs, and that drug war was called the Boxer Rebellion in China. Yes, sir. And the Bushes weren't involved. Prescott Bush did this. Real talk. Yes, sir. So yeah, that whole, opioid crisis, it's all karmic and it's blowback, you know what I mean? What is to be said about that? That is some real shit. Niche LA. Yes, even digging in the garbage and serving it. Sick face. In real life. Real motherfucking life. What up, Rich D? See you hollering peace, bro. What up? Jerome Simmons saying, huh? Alright. What up, Jerome Simmons, if you still in there, man? What up? Peace to you. So, yeah. I still got these biscuits up on the other screen y'all can't see. Yo, just getting at y'all right fast. Congressional Black Caucus over there celebrating Asian culture, but see... Oh, this is from Moni Love. I ain't seen you in a minute, Moni Love. What's been good, Miss Lady? How's life today? Moni Love say Congressional Black Caucus over there celebrating Asian culture, but not leveraging them to support our black causes. Yeah. A lot of those elder faces are played out in the game. They ain't standing for shit, and we ain't got time for them. I don't got time for nobody that ain't on a pathway to this shit. That's why I had to get this post out of the way today. I don't want it to be said that I only went in on non-ADOS blacks. I'm finna get at Asians, Indians, and Latinos, and then I'm finna get into a chamber with this channel that's gonna be in a completely wild ass vein. I'm gonna have y'all calling in. Hold up, since I got other people in the motherfucking chat today. Look, y'all, I want to know this. Let me know this right now, because I asked this question about 2-3 weeks ago and got a couple ones, but not enough to make me say, alright, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna ask y'all this. I'm thinking about go ahead and just bringing in my 800 number in this bitch, man, so y'all can call me up, you know what I'm saying, and holler at me at certain points during these casts and all that, these longer casts that I do, maybe even shorter casts. I don't give a damn. If y'all catch me, y'all catch me on the phone. If y'all catch me on the live, holler at me, you know what I'm saying. Press 1 if y'all want me to do this 800 number thing. I'll pull it off if y'all want me to do it. I just didn't get a lot of ones. I got a couple of ones. The boy Elevation Allah hit me up with a 1. Somebody else hit me up with a 1. So y'all, all y'all in the chat, if y'all want for me to do this phone number, y'all press 1. If you want me to do this 800 number, everybody press 1. Everybody let me know. I'm saying I'm tallying. I'm gonna keep tallying until I get a considerable number. That's my mods, Niche and Moni, of course. Yeah. Okay, word. So I'm gonna count that with the other few that I got, right? I'm gonna count y'all. Okay. Cause, once I finish this chamber, going in on these immigrant groups, I got some other things that are very necessary. I got some collabs coming up with some fellow YouTubers. I got some other kind of interview shit coming up. So, you know, y'all might want to call in for that type of shit. That's all I'm saying. But yeah. Anyway. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, so you know when I'm dropping. Hold on, let me make sure I do this one more again while I'm up here. Let me set the trend real quick so people can know the trend. It go like this. See? Alright. And don't forget to check out that Teespring. That shit doing the thing. Let me get it, y'all.